So in this day and age, we as Christians have to be the covering for people that have been brokenhearted, that have suffered spiritual abuse. I'm a survivor, and I'm only now able to speak of it because I have worked on my bitterness. But that root went down deep, and I had reason for it because I came from cray-cray in my home front, right? So if you have a family that doesn't give you love and acceptance, and you go out and you look for a surrogate family in the church, and then it's a repeat of everything that you commonly withstood, that is normal for us, okay? I'm speaking to a lot of people because there's this, there's a confession of sin that is also shame enforcing when people are afraid that you'll get out of hand. So that control factor has to come in just to, be a slight smackdown for the sake of your obedience and your loyalty. It's kind of like gang affiliation, okay? I've worked with gangs. Let me tell you, the book is coming. But I had to also work out my own anger and frustration towards other Christians because they can be most damaging. If a Christian is coming with good intention and says, oh, here, let me help you off the street, and let me post you up in his house and pack you in like sardines 8 deep, and it smells like squalor when you walk in, but we're going to take your food stamps and we're going to give you all of your supplies to do life, but we're going to mandate that you attend our church services and you have to do a Bible study, blah, 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 blah. Run for the hills, just saying. Been there, done that. I've had some escapees come and stay with me. And when I took in some of these abused teenagers, the theme was the same. It was, they had to prove their belief in whatever the authorities were preaching and teaching, okay? And if they didn't comply, then there was going to be some type of dismissal. That means back row, my friends, or you're just going to have to sit this one out because we don't feel like you're spiritually mature, or we need to give you a chaperone. We don't even know if you can function on a normal without one of us being there to tell you what to think. So religion is basically today the modern day Sadducees and Pharisees. Don't do this, but do this. And that is the quickest snuffer to any joy for a believer. And it's simply, it's almost like protocol because it's usurping of your own free will. So anybody that just tells you can't do this in Jesus is not really operating from their understanding of who Jesus is, because he can't do anything outside of the Father. So if you know who the Father is, then a stranger's voice you will not follow. And we have to be girded up and recognize that some of this PTSD, this trauma that we're carrying around, is legit. It also means that you're not going to be able to take that advice from the pulpit that says you need to just forgive and move forward, because in each memory alone, all of the rejection, the abandonment, the blame, the scapegoating, all of that, there could be 1,000 different fissures in one memory alone that needs to forgive. That would be parts of you that need to forgive a circumstance. This is the reason why we hear themes play out in people's lives. If they were sexually abused as a child and they make it through adulthood, most of them have stories of repeated assaults. And I love it when somebody has to confess their sexual sin. I don't know a person who has survived that yet, because as soon as they're done giving their testimony, they're going to be talked up and it's going to be nothing less than gossip. They will never come back from a reputation that's pegged as doing something devious or perverted. Yet every single sin that most people try the hardest to hide are the most devious and perverted. And I've worked with so many teens that literally are coming to me, especially in the emotional aspect, where they are misunderstood because their parents haven't taken time to do their own inner healing work and work on their relationships with their parents, so that they just create this generational curse line to be anchored deeper and deeper with each new baby they pop out. And oh my gosh, we wonder why everyone's quieted. That quieting factor it's really indicative of spiritual abuse, because don't talk about something that could bring us any kind of negative attention. We don't want it. We don't need it. So I had literally kids that were coming to me and saying, my dad is beating me. My mom is doing this to me. And if I went to leadership and said, this child is not faking this emotion, this is legitimately going on. We can watch the movie, I Can Only Imagine, and see the truth. You can watch The Shack and see that this stuff goes on in Christian circles. But I was always affronted with, well, that parent is on the board, or that person's in leadership. I don't believe what that child is saying. They're trying to defame them in some way. Okay. There needs to be an awareness as Christians that we are the protective covering of each other, of children, because we're always big on preaching that children are the future, but are they going to be equipped? Because it says if you train a child up as they go, they will not depart from it. But what if the training was wrong? What if we taught them aggression and to shrink back and to be like, oh my gosh, God is not powerful? Because as we mistreat our children when their brains are developing, if we're harsh and hateful and we're calling them ungrateful brats, then they associate God with the authority that has reared them. Therefore, parenting is a big deal. Any kind of authority or teaching mandate that we want to exercise our control over others with, we best make sure that we're going to be able to stand before God and be judged by it, because that's a greater call. And it can't really continue, not in this day and age where everybody is affronting everybody with offense and everybody's so weak because their consciousness is already usurped by the enemy. And if we as Christians are playing along with blaming people for their emotions and demonizing them because of it, beating them. I had a child that was beaten, pastors, their parents, beat them every time they got angry. This is something that is a tough topic, but we can actually break it down into bite-sized pieces and, eat it, chew on the fat a little bit, let it go down and like coat our systems, because it's heavy, but the Lord says his yoke is light. His burden is easy. Come on. This is something that if we are utilizing our supernatural awareness to bring the manifested power of God, that means that we're going to have to start mending some brokenness. That means that we're going to have to be exercising our faith and our counseling. It means that we're going to have to be addressing that everything is spiritual first. And if we're not dealing with the spiritual, then we're not even getting to the soul of a person, because the spirit man is the one that's suffering. It deems everything that it sees through its five senses. We as people, humanity, we deem the world, if it's safe or not, based on the level of PTSD or trauma that we bring. And if the church is part of that problem, we got to get back to basics. I mean, there's a lot of people I know that are meaning well, but truth be told, we're missing it. And we don't have time to keep going in those same trenches. Those brain pathways that dig deep, they go really deep and they're pronounced, they have to have life breathed onto them. We have to be the salt of the earth. We have to be those that understand if this person is reacting quickly, then there's something in the backdrop. And I love it. I have had some recent leaders in church that have come to me and apologized on behalf of all the leadership in prior years that have harmed me. But I still have to do the work. And we as saints need to be equipping other people to also do the work, to be brave, to say, you know what, I've been where you're at, and it does suck, but I'm still going back into the trenches, and I'm still praising, thanking, and worshiping God every day. And I do that best in my prayer closet, and people see that because I illuminate the atmosphere where I go, because I'm bringing the light. But I will go to any church that I'm invited to because I believe in the fellowship of each other. But I'm not going to put my faith in a group of people that might not be mature enough to handle what the world is dishing out, because they assimilate it with what they were brought up in. It's time for us to get our spiritual glasses on. And I just think eyesight is here to see the heavens.